The streaming is live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session today with the virtual village hall, Activism, Allyship and Advocacy, Turning Passion into Action. So my name is Laïla El-Métoui and my pronouns are she, her. I have founded a few initiatives. I've had 3 Educating at Racism conferences, 8 Pride in Education. I'm also the founder of Proud London Councils, which is the pan-London LGBTQ plus staff network in the local authorities in London. I co-founded UK Queer Arabs, which is now called Swana Queers, and co-founded the Embassy Model Summits with Cameron Khan. And we've got the 3rd summit coming up on the 19th of March. I've had a number of awards. I've declined last year the National Diversity Awards for outstanding contribution to communities because of who they were sponsored by. But last year I was delegate at the United Nations for their CSW 68 conference. I was on the honors list for the National Diversity Power List. The year before, I had a couple of awards, a nomination with Trans in the City and Rainbow Honors. And in 2020, I had the immense privilege of being awarded Stonewall Lesbian Role Model of the Year. And not that I care about awards, if I'm being really honest, but I think it's really nice to be recognized for the activism, allyship, and advocacy that I've been doing for over 3 decades. Just a little bit of ground rules. This is a safer space. All of the platforms are completely and utterly anonymous. Please feel free to ask questions. There is a Menti that is going to be shared with you, which will give you access to the QR code for the interactive part of the session, but you can also ask questions on there, and all questions are valid. Curiosity did not kill the cat, and actually mistakes help us learn and grow. So we've got a couple of outcomes for this session. Hopefully, by the end, you will gain a better understanding of the difference between allyship, advocacy, and activism, and an overview of what can be done as an individual to influence change about the issues that you care the most about. So I hope it'll be an informative session. So before we start, I just want to say that the language that I use in this presentation is inclusive. So I don't talk about asylum seekers, but I talk about people seeking asylum. I don't talk about ethnic minorities, but I talk about global majority and racialized community, minoritized community rather than minority, and marginalized communities. So I'm just going to you should be able to see this. Stop sharing. I'm just going to share the Menti meter, and the first question is, what would you like to gain from the session? So you can join by scanning the QR code, or I think there is a link that has been shared where you can go to menti.com, and the code is 46958244. So please let us know what you would like to gain from this session. Let me share again. I don't know why it's not sharing. I need to be able to see the Menti, so you should be able to see this now. So I'm just going to give you a minute. I'm just wondering whether you can see the Menti. And I'm just very eager to know if what you would like to gain from this session. So you can scan the QR code And obviously, if you are watching the live recording, this will not be, if you're watching the recording, this will not be live, so you won't be able to contribute, but maybe take a minute to write down what you'd like to learn. So someone would like to learn more about allyship. And I know that we're being live streamed on different platforms, on Facebook and YouTube. So to understand what activism is, thank you very much. I'm just going to give you one more minute to reflect on to educate myself further on LGBT plus issues. I'm not sure I'll be covering more about LGBTIQA+. I think we've had other to improve my understanding of others and feel equipped to offer help where possible. Yes, I've got some really practical things. I'll just give you one more minute. We should have some music while we're waiting. Dum, 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 dum. Okay, well, this will still be live. So let's have a look at the next question. So the next question is, what issue are you the most passionate about? And again, we're using the same Mentimeters. So is it social justice, climate action, education? Are you passionate about trying to stop the wars and genocides happening? Is it the Me Too? Is it Black Lives Matters? Is it LGBTIQA plus or disability rights? Is it animal cruelty? So I'm just going to share the screen again and ask you to let us know what issues are you the most passionate about. So for me, I'm passionate about quite a lot of things. I'm passionate about LGBTIQA plus rights, especially trans, intersex and asexual rights, which are being under attack, especially trans rights at the moment in America. I'm really passionate about the genocides that is happening in Congo, in Sudan, and Palestine. So I'm doing what I can with what I have to try to influence change. Send inclusion in education, very good. Disability rights. And this workshop is a general workshop around allyship activism. So it's not specifically about LGBTIQA. So thank you for the people who are mentioning that they've got something that they're really passionate about. Anything else that drives your fire? I'm not sure whether people are able to access. So there's different ways that you can join the Menti. You can scan the QR code on your phone. But if you've joined us from your phone, there is a link, I believe, that is being shared, yes, by the virtual village hall. Misogyny in secondary education. Ouch, where do we start? Sometimes it's really difficult when you care about a lot of things. And my activist journey started really early. I joined the student union in secondary school, and I remember taking part in my very first protest. I was 15 or 16. It was in another country. where unions have got a little bit more power than they have in the UK. I'm just going to ask one more person to let us know what they're passionate about, and then we can continue with the session. Trans rights, thank you. Disability rights. So it's a range. We've got disability, we've got climate change. Anybody passionate about climate change? Climate. Thank you very much. Somebody's just started. So I'm just going to go back to the presentation, and let us start with some definitions. So, allyship. An ally is someone who supports people all the time, not just at work. And it's also someone who understands that people have had to overcome more hurdles than others. And I came up with a phrase, my normal is not your normal, or my normal may not be your normal. And I think we can all be allies. Some people don't like the word ally, so you can call yourself a co-conspirator, a messenger, however you wish to call yourself. I think for me, it's like being a good friend. The definition of allyship is supporting and standing with marginalized, minoritized, racialized, or underrepresented group through listening, learning, and using your own privilege to support. You might have been familiar with the term allyship is a verb, and that means that an ally requires ongoing active efforts rather than just holding supportive beliefs. And it's about supporting marginalized, racialized, minoritized, or underrepresented group to foster inclusivity and equity, but also using your privilege. For example, a cisgender ally sharing the issues faced by trans people, or a white ally engaging in anti-racist initiatives, or an able-bodied person sharing the issues faced by disabled people. And I like to use this metaphor of the owl standing either next to, in front of, or behind. So in front of, you're protecting the person that you wish to be an ally for. Next to, you're making up the numbers. And behind, you're actually amplifying their voice. And I think this really simple metaphor with the three position of being next to, in front of, or behind can be applied to anything, whether you're looking at policies, whether you're looking at strategies, or supporting people. Where is your role as an ally? Are you amplifying someone's voices? Are you protecting them? Or are you making up the numbers? And I think some of you might have joined me for the intersectionality workshop, where we looked at power and privilege. And privilege, this definition by Janaya Khan, who co-founded the BLM movement in Toronto, is quite useful, I think, because privilege isn't about what you've gone through, it's about what you haven't had to go through. So being an ally and being an effective ally starts with who we are as humans, so intentional, starting with myself to develop awareness of my own bias, because I think we all have bias, accepting feedback and learning from our mistakes, but also actively seeking people from a range of cultural backgrounds, identities, language, religion. And we need to educate ourselves about the lived experience of marginalized individual, and be respectfully curious, use our privilege effectively, and not seek a position of leadership on behalf of the community we seek to support. And always remember the principle, nothing about us without us. So always ensure that people with intersectional or marginalized identities are involved in decision making. Advocacy. It's about supporting a cause, often through lobbying, public support speaking, writing to influence policy or opinion. So you could be writing to your MP or speaking at public event or creating an awareness campaign. So allyship is more like being a good friend. Advocacy is more like public support, and activism is more direct action and yes, more about direct action, but there are some overlap and we're going to have a look at them. So advocacy promotes causes to influence public opinion and policy. So for example, writing a blog to raise awareness about mental health issues, campaigning to increase public education funding, and activism. I'll start with this quote from the fantastic Angela Davis. I am no longer accepting things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And I think that's a really good way of starting this section on activism. So there is a political element to being an activist, and it's about taking direct action to bring about social or political change. So things like organizing protests, campaigning for legislation, participating in community initiatives. You can organize a climate strike to demand a stronger environmental policy, or a protest, or participating in a community cleanup. So activism involves taking direct action to promote, impede, or bring about social, political, economic, or environmental change. And it's often characterized by a proactive efforts aimed at addressing specific issues or injustice. So they often overlap. I mean, I found it really difficult for me because if I'm an ally to the trans community, then I'm also an advocate and I'm also an activist. So activism is about taking direct, often public actions to address and rectify specific issues. Allyship centers on supporting and amplifying the efforts of marginalized groups, emphasizing solidarity and shared responsibility. And advocacy focuses on influencing policy and systems through strategic communication and lobbying efforts. Advocacy actually comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call, and activism from the Latin agere, which means to do. And you can see that there are some overlap. So for example, if you're sending a letter to your elected representative, that's advocacy and activism. Making and disseminating petition would come under both advocacy and activism. So activism and allyship. An ally might engage in activism by participating in protests and campaign that supports marginalized group. If you're looking at the combination between activism and advocacy, activists often engage in advocacy by pushing for policy change alongside their direct actions. Allyship and advocacy. Allies may advocate for policy that benefit the communities they support, using their privileged position to influence decision maker. And then all three together, which is how I'd like to view myself, is a comprehensive approach to social change, which might involve activists leading direct action, allies supporting and amplifying these efforts, and advocates working to change the underlying policies and systems. So what are the benefits of being an activist? Why should people engage in activism? So I'm just going to share again and ask you very kindly to tell me, how does being an activist benefit you? What kind of skills do we gain by becoming an activist? How is that helpful? Before I'd give you how I have benefited from being an activist. Is it something that benefits you? And again, you can scan the QR code or you can go to menti.com. And if you're watching the recording, please accept my apologies, but this is not live. So how does being an activist benefit you? And while we're waiting for people to reflect on how, on the benefits that you might gain from engaging in activism, I also wanted to say that sometimes being an activist can have a detrimental impact on your mental health and well-being. So it's really, really important that you ensure that in whatever activities you engage, you protect yourself, practice self-care, and get the appropriate emotional support that you need. Contributing to social change, making a difference, yeah, that's really rewarding. Any other? Knowing I'm supporting my friend. I think activism can help you heal. True. I'm thinking about sometimes you can feel like you're the only person who cares about an issue. And when I've attended protests, for example, it's re-energized me to be surrounded by literally hundreds of thousands of people. For example, the March for Palestine that I have been attending for the last 15 months, the national and the local one. I think I missed probably about 5 or 6 marches in the last year and a half. It's reinvigorated me and given me the, yes, absolutely, making me feel like I'm part of something bigger, as someone has just said. So there's quite a lot of advantages to being an activist, but we also need to make sure that we look after ourselves in the process. Confidence that your voice matters. Very good. One more, and then you gave me yours. I'll give you mine. And I'd like to encourage everyone who is not currently an activist to become one, because the benefits are absolutely numerous. So how does being an activist benefit you? Because there are loads of advantages to being an activist. So I'm just going to resume the presentation. So being an activist boosts your self-esteem because it enables you to achieve goals, helps you develop leadership, communication, problem-solving skills, encourages critical thinking. It also builds stronger connection. And I have to say, through my years of activism, I have built very strong friendships with people, and some of my current close friends are people who are actively involved in the activism on the issues that I really care about. Um, so yeah, there's a really strong social connection element. It creates a sense of belonging, as people have said in the Menti meter, feel part of something bigger. So that's spot on. Expands your network. I met people on marches that I would have, or through my activism activities that I might not have met before. You can have a real impact. So you can actually help influence policies and drive social change, raise awareness of important issues, hold government and institution into account. It has a really it can have a positive impact on your mental health and well-being, because you have a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Increases your resilience. It's a positive outlet for stress and frustration about the issues that you care about, and it fosters a sense of integrity and fulfillment. But it also can help your professional, your career. So you can develop very valuable skills. You can put add them to your CV by demonstrating a commitment to by demonstrating your commitment and integrity and ethics to something that you really care about. And it makes you, the word that I want to use is congruent, because it aligns actions with your personal values and beliefs, and it encourages ethical decision making and social responsibility. Uh, so it's all on the slide: fostering innovation and creativity, enhancing global awareness, understanding, and leaving a lasting legacy, because you're hopefully contributing to a better future for generation to come. So as you can see, there's loads of benefits to being an activist, and I very strongly encourage everyone to do so. So how can we be an activist? Um, so you mentioned earlier the issues that you care about. Is there one particular issue that you would like to be a better activist for? So please let us know which issue. If you could just type one word. I'm just wondering whether there's a delay between people joining the Menti. So which issue would you like to be a better activist for? So I'm not sure whether people are able to. So for me, I'd like to be climate change, disability, trans rights. They're all coming through now. Thank you very much. In equal measure. And I can see I've got questions as well. Women's equality, and I'll go to the questions at the end, if that's okay. And my next question to you is, what current or additional practical steps can you take to better support your cause? So you said you wanted to support trans rights or gender equality or climate change. So how can you do that? What are you currently doing, or what could you be doing to better support your cause? So is it writing to your MP, or is it attending a protest, or it's part of the activist toolkit? What current or additional practical steps can you take to better support your cause? So what are you currently doing, or what could you do to support the cause or issue that you're really passionate about? Write to my MP, read more evidence. Very good. There's actually quite a lot of ready-made template online for each of the causes that you are passionate about. So I'm part of the Palestine Solidarity Movement, and on the Palestine Solidarity UK website, there's a lot of ready-made templates that I'm using. So yes, writing to your MP is a really good one. What else could be done, or are you currently doing? Voting for parties and MP that champion green policies, yes. Speak up in hostile, indifferent situations, thank you. We've got very active audience that is taking the time to think about it, and hopefully they will learn something from the range of activities that I'm proposing to share with you in a minute. But I wanted to know what you are currently doing or what you think you could do to support the cause that really means a lot to you. Following active social media accounts that speak on the cause. It's becoming increasingly difficult, especially with the change in Meta algorithm, which is affecting Instagram and Facebook, and targeting trans people, women, and people of color. Challenge friends on their views. That's really good. And I think when you challenge people, we need to challenge the statement rather than the person. So it's not about calling them out for being racist or homophobic unless they are blatantly so, but challenging the statement and being slightly more diplomatic by saying, do you realize that when you say that, you come across as, and it's much better to yes, listen to activist podcasts, very good. One more and then I'll show you mine. So listening to an activist podcast, is it advocacy? Is it allyship? Is it activism? Is it all of the above? Okay, shall I share my presentation again to have a look at how you can be, so you can participate in protest and demonstration. So the Women's March, for example, which is held globally. You can take part in rallies and sit-in, flash mob. You can organize a sudden large gathering in public spaces to draw attention to a specific cause. Writing to or meeting with legislators or elected representative, creating a detailed report to inform policymaker. And I think now with AI, you don't actually need to have all the information. You can use things like perplexity.ai or ChatGPT or Copilot and Gemini to do the research that you need to help you formulate what you need to write. And I think for me, that's been a huge shift in my ability to try to advocate or support the causes that really matter to me, is using AI to help me formulate letters and do the research. You can write to your MP, I think you've mentioned it before, or vote for the people that will support your cause, which has been mentioned. Hashtag can raise awareness. So, for example, the Me Too movement raised awareness about sexual harassment and assault, and that was quite an effective hashtag campaign, global. You can also speak at schools or community center to educate others about what you feel really passionate about. Online petitions, using platforms like change.org to gather signatures, or community petitions. So you can do it at the national level, or you can also do it at the local level. So, for example, if you wanted to support the establishment of a new public park, you can petition your local authority, which is, I think, something that people might not necessarily do. So in order to petition your local authority, you need to register on your local authority website and create a petition. You provide a title description, you submit for review, they will verify your detail, and then once approved, it'll be published online, and you can share together signature and then submit by the deadline. And what you might not know is the signature requirement. So it varies between local authority, but usually, as an average, 50 signatures will get you a committee meeting. And if you wanted to have a full council debate, it's 1,500. But some local authorities have got a tiered response. So 10 signature will get a response from staff. I know one particular local authority that will actually have to respond publicly with 30 signatures. So I think it's really interesting to check what your local authority will accept. And sometimes as low as 5 signatures are enough. So if you're passionate about something happening locally, then you can actually petition your local authority. We talked about social media and hashtag, like Black Lives Matters and the Me Too movement. You can also create challenges. I don't know whether you remember the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS. So if you're really good at using social media and digital platform, you can create a challenge to raise awareness. And you can also volunteer. For example, volunteer at a homeless shelter or at your local food bank. If you care about cost of living and poverty. I used to volunteer at Christmas, feeding the homeless for shelter for many, many years. And you can also teach a workshop on sustainable living practice, or I don't know, how to reduce waste. So there's different ways that you can raise awareness and support the cause that is really important to you. We can also write pieces and articles in newspaper or blogs, publishing reports, something that charities like Amnesty International, for example, does on human rights abuse, and then you can share them. And you can create a pamphlet or infographic that explains the issues, or join an organization that has created these leaflets. So I know that for me, every other Saturday, my local Palestinian support group in my local authorities has a stall, and everyone's invited to come and take some leaflets and distribute and talk to the local community about the genocide that is happening in Palestine, for example. Boycott and economic pressure is really important, that you put your money where your mouth is. So there's different ways that can be done. There's consumer boycotts, so encouraging the public to boycott companies that engage in unethical labor practices. There's the divestment campaign, so BDS, which is boycott, divest, and sanction. So advocating for institutions to divest from fossil fuel, for example. And if you go to the BDS website, you will have a list of companies which are complicit in human rights violation, including those linked to fossil fuel and unethical labor practices. I'm personally boycotting Amazon for a number of reasons. First of all, the way they treat their workers, but also their involvement, or alleged involvement in wars and genocides. And also they're avoiding corporate tax. so they're not getting a penny of my earned cash. Campaigns targeting companies linked to sustainable palm oil, so you can also check the ingredients of the products that you're buying and their provenance. You can boycott against animal testing products, and it's really important that you join the larger movements to have more impact. So the problem that I had was, like, if I really look into every single product that we buy, everything is linked to one big corporation or another. And if you really, really want to be truly ethical in your consumerism, it becomes really difficult, but it also becomes really expensive, because ethically sourced products seem to be a bit more expensive than the mass the products that are produced en masse by very large factories. So the BDS website or the Boycat app is really good, because it's got a tiered level. So which are the ones that everyone needs to boycott, and then the second tier is like if you can, and then the third tier is if you. So it has an impact on the organizations, and yes, so the BDS. Additional things that you can do: you can take legal action against an organization. You can be creative. I've seen graffitis, protest art, performance arts. I saw one this morning outside a Starbucks on Instagram, where everybody was dressed covered in blood, and they were spilling blood. So that's like a performance art. You can also donate to the organization through fundraising or crowd funding. So you can support organization as a one-off or on the monthly basis. Civil disobedience, which is non-violence resistance. So, for example, blocking segregated facilities as a symbolic protest, and engage in events like Earth Day or Extinction Rebellion climate actions. I'm going to finish with some closing quotes. One by Malala Yousafzai, who says, "When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful." And the last one is by Martin Luther King Jr. "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." I hope they resonate with you. I hope you've learned additional tools. I can see that I've got a few questions. And while I'm answering the question, I'd like to ask you if you've learned anything. And the questions are: thank you for your session. What are some of the most impactful ways allies can support trans rights beyond social media activism? That's a really, really good question, actually. I think you can reach out to your trans friend if you have any, and just check up on them, see how they're doing, asking them if they need any support. What else have I been doing to my trans van? Amplify their voices. So I've got a post on LinkedIn, which is encouraging organizations to commission trans people to come into the organizations and receive training from trans and non-binary people. The other thing I've been doing is writing to my local surgery, asking them what specific services they're offering trans and non-binary people. But it's always best to ask them what they need. If you're in the workplace, you can join an employee resource group, the LGBT staff network, and try to influence policies at work. So that's quite a few things that can be done beyond social media activism. So you can think about the local impact that you have, or you can think about, it depends where you are and what your circle of influence is. I hope that answered the question. And what's the quickest, best way to find alternatives to companies I'm trying to boycott? I want to boycott them, but it's usually at a disadvantage to myself when doing so. Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So I use Amazon as a Google search. So I look for the product and then I go onto the company website directly. I have to say that it's cost me a bit more because I've cancelled my Amazon Prime membership. Shopping local, and yeah, so it involves doing a bit more research, but once the initial research has been done, then you've got the products that you need. If you wanted to give me an example for that question, for the last question, what is the quickest, best way to find alternatives to company? Depends. If you could give me an example of what kind of products you're looking for. So if it's food, I try to buy from my local shops or my local market, which tends to be a bit more expensive than the chained supermarket. It depends on what it is that you're looking for and which companies you're trying to boycott. Your bank, you can change to a more ethical bank. I hope you've learned something. We've come to the end of the session and I've allowed 10 minutes for questions. I hope you found it informative. Did you learn anything? Please let me know. And do you have any more questions? I want to thank you for staying with me for 50 minutes. Oh, I can see that the virtual village hall has posted, if you want to make a real difference, become a volunteer responder, from delivering prescription to making friendly calls at Vol Responders. There's a variety of volunteer activities for you to help people who need support, and you can find out more in the link posted in the chat, nhscarevolunteerresponder.org. Thank you for the practical tips for activism. I hope you've learned something. I mean, it was really difficult when I was thinking of the presentation. It would have been good to have this as a panel discussion to see what other people have done. Like, I'm not the source of all knowledge. I've just been doing it for a really long time and quite passionately. So it was good for me to be able to reflect on what I do and try to encourage people to do the same. I'm just going to see if people have any more questions. And I hope I answered your question. I just Googled how to submit a petition. I didn't know that you could do that. Yes, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, thank you for sharing the activist toolkit. I think it's a really practical way to help. Oh, thank you. Right, my imposter syndrome is getting lower now. When I'm delivering online, I'm not always sure of the impact that I'm having. I'm just looking to see if we've got any more questions, and I'm also going to check the chats for any comments. Yeah, and what really surprised me about the local authorities have very few signatures are needed for actually to have your local authority to consider it. So if you're really passionate about the state of your local park or a nuisance or something that is affecting you locally, it's a good way to try to influence change. So I've been Laïla El-Métoui, pronouns she, her. Thank you so much for being such active participants. If you're watching the recording, it'll only be available for 1 month, I think. You won't be able to take part in the interaction, but you can use it as an opportunity to reflect on what you have done and what you're currently doing and what you could be doing. I want to wish everyone a very happy LGBTQ plus History Month. In the UK, the theme is activism and social change. And a very good rest of the day. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye-bye.